What does new Bengals running back Khalil Herbert bring to the offense? Mike Santagata is here to break it all down right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into CBT. I'm James Rapien. He is Mike Santagata, a.k.a. Bengals Sands. Make sure you check him out on the Always Game Day in Cincinnati podcast, bengalstalk.com as well. And hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let's just dive in. This is the Khalil Herbert breakdown, Mike. And you wrote about this and did a whole film breakdown on bengalstalk.com. But the Bengals, they make a trade. They add a running back. It was a position of need after that Zach Moss injury. And they get a guy who's should be in his prime, hasn't gotten many carries this year, but has had a sizable workload in the past, has been a guy that the Bears have relied on. When you watch the film, what were one or two things that jumped out to you or that stand out just when you think about Khalil Herbert, the football player?
Comes to in a good way, the one thing that really stood out to me was despite the size in terms of height, he's a really good short yardage runner. And you see he's like 5'8" and 210 plus pounds. And that starts making sense. You can think of like Doug Martin and some of the older, not, I guess that's a little older. People probably remember though, shorter guys, but they were stocky and they could just plow forward. You got that natural leverage. It gives you the ability to just fall forward, which is something I think it's taken for granted because the Bengals running backs haven't been able to do that. They get an opportunity one-on-one in the hole with a defender and they don't fall forward. They fall backwards. And it's just, he's not falling that far forward with the height, but, he's falling forward and be able to finish. And I think that shows up the best when you look at his short yardage runs, where in 2022 to 2023, he was 14 out of 17 on converting those. And they were from shotgun too. I know people are thinking like, well, that's probably because they got under center. But no, they ran a lot from the shotgun because you can think of having a running quarterback. It's better to have him from the gun. Justin Fields was more comfortable playing from the gun, just like Joe Burrow is. So I think that in itself is an advantage to have, to be able to go short yardage and actually be able to pick it up on the ground, because it feels like the Bengals have been just scrambling for some type of consistent short yardage answer. They tried that yo-yo motion with Jamar. It didn't work. And it just feels like they get to 3rd and 1. And a lot of teams we'll just run it and convert and continue on. Think of the Eagles, like we're just going to quarterback sneak this. But the Bengals get there and it's like, I don't know if they convert this. And it's going to end the entire drive if it's on your side of the field. So getting a good short yardage runner is huge. And I think he is a good short yardage runner.
I think one moment last week against the Raiders, it was on their first drive of the game. Chase Brown runs for 9 yards. It's 2nd and 1. And I'm literally like, oh boy. 2nd and 1. And that was the one where Max Crosby beats Amarius inside and Joe just makes a heck of a move, flips it out to Chase Brown for the first down. They never got the 3rd and 1. But short yardage has been an issue. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, it cost them the Eagles game and things unraveled in the third quarter and in the second half after that. When you watch Khalil Herbert, does he or can he fill the void that Zach Moss left behind? Because they make this trade because they lose Zach Moss to a neck injury. Moss is going to be out for the year. We know what Chase Brown brings. He's an explosive running back. Good hands. He's worked on his hands. I feel like he's got good hands at this point. Had a really nice touchdown catch last week. But the pass blocking element for Chase Brown is still coming along in year 2. That's where Zach Moss was so valuable. That's why I loved him, is because they trusted him as a pass protector. Can Khalil Herbert fill that void as a pass protector and really just the Zach Moss role in general?
To me, that's a shaky fit, just because he has pickups in pass protection where he does a good job. And then there's also, you could watch, he only had, I think, 40 something reps in 2022. And I watched them all and I could find losses across his face, to the outside, to the inside, and through his body. So that becomes a little shaky of like, well, he's probably not a high end pass protector. I don't think he is terrible at it. But when you get into 3rd and extra long, I wouldn't be surprised if that role now just goes to Drew Sample, which is frustrating in its own right. Of if he's the dump down option, there's no blitz, outside of that one Bills play, will he ever, make something happen out of
Yeah.
structure there. Chase Brown did a great job out of structure last week. And I think he is a good receiver. He also has issues in pass protection. The thing with Khalil Herbert that was just made this fit just a little not great, because I think the run game stuff is a perfect fit. He's going to fit into those zone run schemes. He's going to fit into doing everything from shotgun. It's just that he also wasn't a great receiver. Caught 73.8% of his targets, which sounds good, but that's lower than every running back since Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and only averaged 4.8 yards per target as well, which is also down there. And you have to go back. I'm just talking Bengals running backs. That's not like in general back to Ben Jarvis. There's other running backs who can't catch the ball that well. But if I'm thinking of him as like some high end receiver, he could pass protect and get out there, because that is something Zach Moss is able to bring. He could
No doubt.
pass block and then leak out and also catch the ball. There were a couple reps where he's going for 10 plus yards, and he also picked somebody up in pass protection earlier in the play. Just became a leak out option. I don't know if I see that in Herbert. I would love to be wrong on that, but that's the part where the fit is just a little shaky. But you're giving up a 7th round pick and you get a great runner and who's going to fit, the short yardage part of it. I think that's important. You just have to figure out what you're going to do for all the passing down stuff.
Yeah, to me, it stinks in a way, because it's almost like he could have been your Chase Brown to an extent, and like that's the like that role. Not that it stinks, because they needed to upgrade their running back room. That was something we talked about on here multiple times in the offseason. It's like, if anything happens to Moss or Brown, they have nothing behind them, and that's why you see the Bengals make their first trade where they're giving up a pick and not trading away a disgruntled player for someone that can help them in years and years and years. Why? Because they knew they needed it. As far as a runner, you say it fits the shotgun runs and all of those things. Let's talk about Thursday night, because it's a short week. He got traded on Tuesday morning, was in the building around 2 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. I asked Joe Burrow if he thought he could get Khalil up to speed. And he said, yeah. And he's right next to me anyway. I can just tell him what to do. What do you think they can do as far as a crash course into the Bengals offense to get him ready for Thursday night? I assume he'll be active, but what do you think his not workload will be, but his role will be? What do you think they'll be able to teach him and not teach him?
I would think the running stuff would be really easy. Just to have to know what you call different concepts, because maybe they call it Wanda here and call it Wex somewhere else, but just like what's your wide zone and 18, 19, whatever, like numbers, just like, and that is something Bro could just tell them, like, hey, we're running zone right, inside zone right, and just read. That's going to be the same read probably that he's had since middle school, where I'm going to read the 3 tech and then work my way inside. Same with the wide zone runs, read the end man, work inside. And your power and your counter is just going to follow the guard and read off of his leverage. So those runs, I think those should be able to catch on quick. I think the pass game stuff, I'd have a little bit of worry about. Just in terms of, you don't want to miss blitz pickups. Saw that with Travion Williams last week, where he missed one and Burrow got crushed. Don't want him to be off, miscommunication there where he doesn't know what's going on. Maybe you can get him fast out into patterns. Maybe you could run some screens. I don't know, but I don't know if I would trust him as like, okay, you're going to check, you're going to scan from here to here and then release. And then they're making different calls at the line. You're like, well, what did my responsibility just become? I have no idea what's going on. But I think the run stuff should just be a seamless fit, because you see this a lot with running backs where they could just kind of get in there. They've been running inside zone, wide zone, whatever, these concepts for probably a decade of their life, if not, maybe time bit more with Pee Wee. So they are used to that. They can get out there and they can just hit the ground running. Royce Freeman for the Rams was like an effective runner last year, and I know he was an NFL vet. So was Herbert. It's not like he's a rookie, but he's just able to walk into that room and immediately pick everything up. I think he played for McVay at one point, but you see this plenty where a guy can come off the street and play running back. And that's probably one of the only positions you could point to of like, yeah, he could pick him up and play him the same day if you needed to, just because he knows everything he needs to do as a runner.
From an explosiveness standpoint, and I think that's the other element here, because when they got Zach Moss, it was like, checks the pass protector box, hands, check, and was explosive last year for the Colts, had some big, long runs. We didn't notice that this year. People did not like Zach Moss by the end of his season because he wasn't as explosive and wasn't as dynamic as Chase Brown. What about Herbert? How is he in that department as a runner? Is he going to give them some pop? Is he like Zach, or is he like Chase, or what's his style like?
I think he's more of a doubles and a triples type of hitter than a home run hitter. And that's just because I don't think he has the top end speed to turn some of those runs into breakaway runs. He had 2 runs of 20 plus miles per hour, according to Next Gen Stats, in 2022 to 2023, where I watched, but because he only had 8 runs last year, I didn't really care that much. But when he had 100 plus run years, I was watching those. And both those runs, he got caught from behind. It just seems like he doesn't have the top gear like Chase Brown does to be able to turn what could be a 40-yard run into an 80-yard run. But I do think he also can consistently make the defender miss in the open field. So if he gets a lane and he's just one-on-one with a safety, he makes him miss and then continues on for 10, 15, 20 yards down the
The
field.
Bengals haven't had that either. That's something they
No.
haven't had from their guys.
Yeah, he's probably the most elusive, best balance, and most powerful back that they would have had this season. So as a runner, I think everything fits. He's like a B plus in every aspect. I don't think he's got any of those as like elite traits. He's not Saquon Barkley, but I think he does provide you something that's like, cool, he can make that defender miss. He can create explosive plays. I just don't think I expect Khalil Herbert to then turn those explosive plays into touchdowns. They're more so just explosive plays that can move the ball very far down the field. And if you're within the 30, 40-yard line, those can be touchdowns. I just don't think he's going to take a run from his own 25 and go 75 yards down the field. I think he usually gets caught in those scenarios.
Has Chase Brown been a reliable pass blocker? Has that gotten better? Is that who you turn to on Thursday night, short week? You mentioned Travion Williams' shortcomings as a pass protector. And I think that's why he's on the roster. So that's unfortunate what we saw last week. So do you think it's going to be Chase? And then maybe you just give Herbert 7 runs, 8 runs to take a little wear and tear off of Chase?
Yeah, that would be my expectation. I don't think Chase Brown's been some world beater in pass protection. He's kind of like Herbert in that there's pickups that are good, there's pickups that are bad. You kind of live with it. I don't. If Travion isn't giving you that, then I don't know who you go to besides the idea of what they did the last year where Sample took that role. But you don't want Sample in those 3rd and 3s type of situation. Like if you're going to have a pass protecting running back on 3rd and 3, I think it will be Chase Brown. Getting to like 3rd and 9, maybe it is Drew Sample because he is reliable in that regard. But yeah, I think you would turn to Chase Brown if you're in a situation where you're going to pass the ball. And maybe it's like those situations where you could pass or run in short yardage. And I know that stinks because Herbert's great in short yardage, but if they come out and load the box and Burrow wants to throw, let him throw. Yeah, I would guess Chase Brown's going to take some of those, but I also think could be Drew Sample. And I know that is not what fans love to hear.
Drew Sample's season is here. He is Mike Santagata. Make sure you follow him on Twitter/X at Bengals_Sands. Also catch him on the Always Game Day in Cincinnati podcast and check out his entire write-up on Khalil Herbert at bengalstalk.com. Mike, you're the man. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.